Hi, this is Marcus Fairs, founder and editor-in-chief of Dezeen, and I'm broadcasting live from the Dezeen studio space in London. Today, we've teamed up with Epic Games to host a talk exploring how architectural visualization tools are transforming architecture. In particular, we'll be looking at how architects are using Twinmotion, which is a real-time 3D visualization tool powered by the Unreal Engine game engine that was originally used to create video games. The talk coincides with our Redesign the World competition, which we launched last month with Epic Games, which calls on ideas to rethink the planet. The competition invites architects and designers and anyone really to propose how to redesign planet Earth using Twinmotion to present their visions of the planet. Joining me today for the talk is Belinda Ercan from Epic Games. Hi, Belinda.
Hi, Marcus. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you.
And Murray Levinson, who's a partner at architecture firm Squire and Partners. Hi, Murray.
Hi, everyone.
And Adam Laskey, who's director of architecture practice Marraum. Hi, Adam.
Hi, Marcus. Hello, everyone.
And finally, we've got Sandra, Youkhana and Luke Pearson, who are co-founders of the studio You+Pea. Hi, Sandra and Luke.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Great. So the thing that you all have in common is that you use Twinmotion in your work. First of all, let me introduce you all in a bit more depth. Belinda, can you tell us who you are and what you do at Epic Games?
Sure. So I'm Belinda, and I'm the product marketing manager for Twinmotion at Epic Games, and I'm coordinating all sorts of marketing efforts around Twinmotion. I'm owning positioning, branding, messaging, and just making sure that I help communicate what the brand and the product stand for.
And you're also one of the judges of our Redesign the World competition.
That's true. Yep.
What are you particularly looking for when people enter the competition? What are you hoping to see?
All sorts of crazy things, crazy solutions to
crazy
a very
is
crazy
good.
problem. Yeah.
Yeah. And are you going to play the piano for us as well?
I can later on.
Really?
If you want. Sure.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Maybe now, a little bit now. Or is that a bit hard with your cable? Let's go to that
Actually,
later. You can do the outro for us at the end. And Murray, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I can't actually play the piano, so slightly disappointing. Murray Levinson from Squire and Partners. We're architects, kind of traditional architectural practice, focusing on the commercial aspects of residential, hotel, and commercial work, based in London. Really excited actually today to find out what other people are doing using this software, which we've only started using fairly recently, but are really enthusiastic about how the 3D world can help explain our ideas to clients.
And when you say you're a traditional architect, presumably you're moving into being non-traditional because you're using this pretty advanced software.
I think the truth is that most architectural practices are beginning to engage with using this software, and it'll be interesting to see how this becomes the norm over the next few years.
Great, thanks. Adam?
Hi, I'm Adam from Marraum Architects. Run a small practice down in Cornwall. There's 9 of us in total. We've been using virtual reality since 2016, fully integrated within our business. So every project that we work with, be it a small extension, full house renovation, or a new build, we make sure our clients can fully walk around their project before we progress past conceptual design and move into planning. So they fully understand what they're working with. And since 2018, we've been using Twinmotion to help us do that.
Great, thank you very much. And finally, Sandra and Luke, tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Hi, I'm Sandra. I'm an architect and I'm a lecturer at the Bartlett School of Architecture, and I'm one of the directors of You+Pea.
Yeah, I'm Luke. I'm an associate professor at the Bartlett School of Architecture, and I'm the other half of You+Pea. So we have a design research practice which is working between architecture and video games. So we're really fascinated by video games as technology, as culture, and what it means for architecture. So I think there'll be obviously some really interesting conversations around that sphere today.
Yeah, we use game engines for design projects, and we also we teach and write about the intersection between architecture and video games as well.
Great. And I was quite intrigued by the name of your studio, but I figured out where it comes from. It's the first
great.
3 letters of both of your surnames, isn't it?
It is.
It wasn't that imaginative.
No.
It's quite cool, though. Brilliant. Okay, now we've introduced everyone. Let's go into the short presentations. Belinda, do you want to start off by sharing your screen with us?
Sure. Everyone can see my presentation slides?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, I'm happy for those who are very new to the world of real time. I'm happy to give a little discourse on all things Twinmotion and Epic Games and Unreal Engine and real time, and just help connect the dots there a little bit and answer the question: what's real time technology? What's real time storytelling actually all about? Because Twinmotion is a so-called real time architecture visualization tool, and we also say that it's a real time storytelling tool. So what's that all about? It's actually all about problems. It's always about problems. We go to bed and we wake up to solve problems, right? Design problems in this context. And at Epic Games, with the new emergence and the help of real-time technology tools, we want to help designers to solve their problems, but not just that. We want to help them solve their problems creatively, because if you do something creatively, that brings an entire new quality to the act of problem solving. Because in the future, which is the now, we see the ways in which we create and iterate and finalize and solve problems. This entire process of solving problems is changing, because that process is being more and more defined by the tool that the designer or creator is using, because the tool is nothing else but the extension of the creative mind. So that's why at Epic Games, we want to empower designers. That's our mission. We want to empower designers to unleash their creative potential. We want to connect to their design tools and help them iterate and finalize and solve their design problems creatively by means of real-time technology. So that's why, yeah, we want to empower designers to create and share real-time stories and experiences. That's why we want to position it as real-time storytelling, because everyone loves to listen and to share and tell stories. And if that also helps to solve problems, then voila, that's the magic that we want to bring across. So who's we? Epic Games, founded in 1991, is a video game and software developer. And they are, I mean, we're famous for all sorts of games. We all heard about it: Fortnite, Gears of War, Unreal Tournament, and many more games. And these games, they have been created and designed by game developers who are using a certain game engine called Unreal Engine. So Epic Games is the creator of Unreal Engine, which at its core is a real-time 3D creation tool. And that real-time tool, that game engine, is free. It's commercially available. We are licensing it to game developers, so to people from the game industry, but we're also licensing it to people from non-game industries, such as architecture, the movie industry, the automotive industry, broadcast, training simulation, and so on and so forth. So that real-time technology by means of Unreal Engine is already enjoying a broad adoption across various industries outside the gaming space. Now, very smart team at Twinmotion, they took that core technology, they took the Unreal Engine, and they turned it into a very heavily simplified version of Unreal Engine with a very simple UI and simple features and workflows, but maintaining that nature of real time that you get with game engines. Right. So that's that. That's how I wanted to connect the dots between Epic Games, Unreal, and Twinmotion. And now let's dive a little bit into the world of real time for the architectural visualization space. So with Twinmotion was initially developed by architects for architects who wanted to have a very quick and easy way to visualize their design data in a way that is very quick and visually appealing at the same time. So once you're inside Twinmotion, you're in this real-time environment. You don't have to plow through various rendering settings anymore. You bring your scene to life, and you can reflect upon your design while designing, while you're bringing it to life, and it doesn't come at the cost of photorealism anymore. You get that instant visual feedback right away. You have smart assets responding in real time to your environment, and so on and so forth. So yeah, you can do analysis and create that new relationship between the designer, the building, and the end user. And so that's why Twinmotion is designed to be that very simple prototyping tool for anyone who's not a visualization specialist, right? It's there for anyone, for any generalist who wants to convey his or her design idea in real time without, with a very low learning curve. And it's very well designed for those who want to just really get a feel of what is real time, what is game engines and game components bring to the act of communicating your design idea. So you can do all sorts of outputs in real time, create VR walkthroughs, videos, images, and so on and so forth. And yeah, that's enabled by real-time technology. And the magic in Twinmotion is that we were able to hide that complex game engine technology and just make it very accessible to anyone. And that's why we have a very vibrant and bustling user community. They're creating all sorts of beautiful images. And if you look at that, and people will say, yeah, cool, I can do that with my traditional software rendering tool as well. I can create images like that. It might take longer, but I get the same result, and I get it maybe even a bit more, crispier and more refined, right? I agree, but I'm not sure if you can do that with your current technology. You cannot dive into the image. With real time, you can actually go inside your idea and explore your still image from all sorts of angles and perspectives in real time. You get photorealism and visual instant feedback right out of the box. So that's why we're saying that Twinmotion is designed for the beginner, the designer, the generalists who want to get a feel of real time, and you can start your story in Twinmotion, but your story doesn't have to end there. You can continue telling a story of your design in Unreal Engine. If you're ready to become that visualization specialist, then we have a possibility for you to do so. So you can bring your Twinmotion data into Unreal, finish it there, build functionality. So this is Twinmotion, and then you can bring that model into Unreal Engine and there explore the realms of whatever game engine brings, like all the game components that help you to communicate your design idea. Like you can add animations, you can create custom experiences, you can tailor entire experiences to your clients' needs, you can have design options and real-time configurators. You can create entire worlds with a game engine and make it smart and have that virtual artificial construct of reality built and for you to test your idea. And you can see game components like clicking on things and information pops up and data pops up, and you can use that data and weave that back into your next iteration of your design. So that's why we're saying that the future, which is the now, is heavily changing and marked by this new technology and defined and shaped by this new technology we call real time. And that's why I think real-time storytelling creates a new art of solving design problems.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. If you could unshare your screen now.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a couple of questions before we go on to the next presentation. So how did architects start using the software? How did architects, when did they first get their hands on the gaming software that had been used for years by game developers? How did that transition start and when?
I think it came with the new generation of architects from universities and from academia who were used to games and who grew up with games. I'm part of that generation. I love games, I love architecture, and I loved how it's all now being fused and married together. And I think there were just some very smart people out there who came from that generation and wanted to make that technology accessible to the traditional architect, and wanted to spread the message, and wanted to create this new industry milestone within the architecture space. And that's why several teams around the world grabbed their game engine technology and convert it into a very simplified version of that and make it accessible. And it's by the magic of simplicity. It's simplification of things. That's what's happening right now to all sorts of technology. If you look at TikTok and Snapchat and whatnot, the role of a specialist becomes more accessible to the generalist. And yeah, I think it came about with the new generation marching on in the architecture space. And
did they start out by hacking Unreal Engine?
No. It's free. It's free. You can the core technology is commercially available. It's free for anyone, and it's open, and designers and engineers can, as you call it, hack, can use it to their benefits and to their demands, and fiddle with it and riff on it and create new tools with the help of Unreal Engine.
And among all the different sectors that use your software, obviously the gaming industry, you talked about movies, industrial design, architecture. Are the designers a part of the biggest growth in the uptake of this kind of technology? Are you seeing big growth in the usage in architecture studios and industrial design studios?
I see, absolutely. I see it. It's not just architects or architectural designers. It's all sorts of creatives. It's a new term that emerged. It's creatives in creative industries. So the world is being shaped by designers and creative people, and it's not just confined to the AEC space. It's everywhere. It's I mean, you have designers in every department. And at Audi, you have designers. In the movie industry, you have designers and artistic people, and so it's not confined to the architecture space per se. It's global. It's a global effect and global impact.
Great. So let's move on to some of the people that are actually using the software and Twinmotion in their day-to-day work. Murray, starting with you, do you want to share your screen now?
Sure. Okay, so what we have here today is a brief show reel of some of the outputs that we have had from Twinmotion recently. We have had a in-house CGI team for about probably nearly 20 years or so, and have always recognized the benefit of modeling in 3D and rendering in 3D and trying to get your the spatial qualities of any project across to a client or the planning authority. More recently, the world has moved into BIM, and we use Revit software and model in that world. Sometimes disappointingly, our output is 2D drawings, but we use Revit and BIM to test our designs. And now with the benefit of Twinmotion, there is a very seamless connection between the two, and our workflows have sped up massively and allowed us to use this software to experiment not only in facade treatment, which is obviously sort of crucial to our role, but also equally importantly, as you see in this example here, testing out ideas about the scale and the quality of the space between buildings. And the software is really, as Belinda was saying, is really fast and has completely transformed our ability to test our own ideas. And check them and revise them if necessary, interact on the fly, as it were. Working in 3D live on the screen, tweaking the model, putting it back into Twinmotion. The other benefit of this software, which is really useful for us, is again shown in here, is the way that we can play with light across building facades, play with weather conditions across building facades, again, to make sure that the decisions we're making about materiality, shape and form and height are played out in front of us, and we can check that we're actually achieving our ideas, releasing those things that are locked in our head and describing them on the screen so others can share them. The example that you see here is quite a dense residential development on the seafront, and we had to produce this model actually to help us convince the local authority that the spaces between the buildings were actually generous and were getting the adequate quantum of light between them, and it obviously equally expresses our architectural ideas in a very evocative way. I mean, sometimes playing with the light, shadow, and time aspect can create some really fabulous images.
Great, thank you very much.
Yeah.
So, were you part of the generation of people who were playing video games that discovered the software that way, or did you?
Actually, even though I am old and decrepit, I did my thesis that when I was doing my diploma was on Sonic the Hedgehog. So I really was, one of the early adopters. No, I definitely grew up with video games, and I think this software continues that theme, and it's interesting to see how it develops.
And how much of a learning curve was it for people in your practice to start using this software? Was it kind of hard to get your head around it, or was it like immediately revolutionary?
The team that use it fundamentally, our in-house CGI team, and the guys that use it, they in the past have used quite complicated, and still do use quite complicated 3D Max V-Ray software, and they are all really positive and enthusiastic about Twinmotion because its user interface is so easy and straightforward.
And at what stages in the design process do you use Twinmotion? Do you use it internally when you're reviewing designs? You talked about showing it to local authorities and clients and so on and so forth. Does it pop up throughout the design process, or is it focused on particular stages?
At the moment, it's primarily focused on the early stages of the project, and we use it continually as the design evolves. So right from the start, the buildings might just be smooth objects, massing objects, and we can test out the height, scale, and bulk of those and the spaces between the buildings. And as the design develops, we keep updating that in the software, and ultimately it comes to the point where we might show it to the planning authority to help us get planning consent. There are a couple of examples actually now where we are later in the process going back into Twinmotion with further detail, and even testing it out as part of a marketing tool where individuals might be able to move through the spaces themselves.
Mm-hmm. And do you use it actually to make design decisions? Do you all sort of meet in virtual reality and start changing the color of facades or materials and things like that?
We certainly do use it as a tool for testing our ideas and changing them. We all slightly still struggle with wearing the headset thing. I think technology needs to move a little bit further along that road, so we're still just huddling around the screen, old style.
Great, thank you very much. And next up is Adam.
Oh yeah, so I'll share screen.
Yes, please, yeah.
Okay. A number of years now. Can you hear me?
Adam, we lost you for a second, but I think you're back. Do you want to just start again? Because I think we lost the first sentence or two of your presentation.
There we go. So, like I said before, I'm Adam from Marraum Architects, a small practice in Cornwall. We've been using virtual reality for a while, so I'll just talk to you a little bit about our journey and how we've got there. So I came from a bit of a gaming upbringing. I play games all the time. First was aware of virtual reality back in 2014 when you put a mobile phone within a Google Cardboard. Understanding then at that point all of our architectural modeling, we modeled in 3D as standard. I was talking to a friend who was gamer. He was virtual reality. He was talking about raw data, which I've never played before, but that was a game that he ran out of bullets. And he was talking about that experience that he was having at the time. And I wanted to know what it would be like to have one of our 3D models in a virtual reality experience. Fortunately, he was a software developer himself. So we worked together to try and move our model into a form that we can actually see it within a virtual reality headset. So in 2016, we invested in a HTC Vive headset. Really quite simple experience at the time. Our clients, they engaged with it, but because of the quality was not quite there as it is today, some had a pleasant experience, some didn't. But in 2017, every single project that was being completed by Marraum was with virtual reality to help the design process. Twinmotion came onto our radar in 2018, and that was a big leap forward. So the quality of the experience was tenfold better, and that helped our clients as well. The additional content that Twinmotion can provide with the CGI and the videos, we were then creating videos for our planning applications to help them understand. So I'll talk about that shortly. Since then, trying to improve the quality, we've been moving forward with the headsets, the HTC Vive Pro a few years ago, and fairly recently we've been working or in communication with HTC. They've lent us the Vive Pro 2 to really see the advancements in their technology as well. So this is a project that's very close to my heart. This is the first ever project that we experienced virtual reality. This is when I went up to my friend's bedroom and he said, look, here's your model. And on site, we were 4 courses out of the ground, but we were able to walk around this building. We had quite a few planning constraints at the time in terms of the ridge heights. So as you can see here, we've got quite a few pinch points, but that didn't have to affect the layout or the view. So as we walk around the building, we can really understand the amount of space that we're creating. Unfortunately, I don't have any CGIs of this because this was pre-Twinmotion, but we have moved forward from there. Here, Sarah is a good friend of ours. She came to us with a big smile on her face that she put a deposit down on a new build, kit home. Unfortunately, she's wheelchair bound on a lie down wheelchair, and instantly looking at the floor plans, we realized that she couldn't use her home. She was going to bash her wheelchair into the corridor every time she went out the door. So we created her home, her new home, in virtual reality, and we put a controller at the end of her wheelchair. And every time that controller disappeared, it was because it was behind a wall. So she was hitting her own home. So we redesigned her home with that in mind, actually put her into the virtual reality, and she completely redesigned her home. I'm very happy with the outcome. So here, client's view. This property, we had a few constraints and covenants on the property that we were not allowed to extend the footprint. We had a beautiful view over the headland of the Cornish coastline. However, slightly twisting on the foundations, we were able to open up to the view of the beach. So it's about 10 degrees. But we pitched the 3 designs to our clients and said, well, if we were to slightly push this design, we would be able to open up to that view. It cost our clients a little bit more money. However, by walking into their home in virtual reality, they're able to get onto this design pretty quickly, and we moved it forward. So this is the quality of their virtual reality experience. I'll just play it that way. And that one window is the best picture in the house. And one evening, I just received a WhatsApp message with exactly that view. And this is the finish of the home. But it's not just our clients that our virtual reality and the use of Twinmotion can help. We realize that a simple elevational drawing such as this is being pitched to many decision makers in a planning application. We also realize that a lot of those can't understand drawings, and it might be a neighbor or something like that. But Twinmotion allows you to create 3D content very easily. And I'd say the one on the right is a lot easier to understand when you're looking at this rest than the one on the left. And from the 3D content, we then provide these videos of a before and after merge. So this is the existing building merging into the proposed dwelling. We use this information to pitch it to neighbours during the neighbour consultation period, also Cornwall Council, town councils, parish councils, anyone who might have to sift through 20, 30, 40 pages of documentation to try and grasp an idea. We put a minute video, host it on our website, say here it is. It's a great tool to just get ready and understanding this proposal before then delving into the detail and looking into the design access statements and other information. Similar to like Murray was saying, you can really understand the light and to play with textures when you get to this level of detail. So Cornwall Council, we've been using it with them for a few years. It's very well received. It does take a little bit more time, so I asked them, is it worth it? And they've asked us to continue doing what we're doing, so we do. And then finally from me, the use of Twinmotion has transformed our business. It provides a tool to take our design off the page, putting our clients at the heart of their project and experiencing their space before a single brick is laid. It allows maximum understanding of their investment and their home. That's me.
Great, thank you very much. If you could unshare your screen, please.
Okay.
So you're talking about using it for planning applications to help planners understand what you're proposing. How do you do that? Do you just submit that with all the rest of the planning documentation, or do you go in and sit down with them and say, let's have a look at this movie?
So we have on both of those. So we have done it as a parish council meeting where we're able to put it on a tablet and open up conversation with the town council. But all of our projects, we provide a hyperlink onto our website. So we submit a document saying, here's the video content, click on this link, and then you'd have 1 minute's worth of video. So we create an existing model in Twinmotion, and then a proposed model, and then a simple program like iMovie. You can stitch them together and create quite a simple video.
It's interesting when you're talking about how a lot of people find it hard to understand drawings. I mean, when there's a local planning application in my area, the process of getting hold of the drawings is hard enough. You've got to go onto a website, enter a code, and then you've got to download these PDFs, and then you've got to understand these sort of skeletal line drawings. I mean, in Cornwall, it sounds like the council is quite receptive to this, but presumably this is something that could make the whole notion of planning, the whole concept of architecture, much more accessible to everyone, the public, the neighbours, the planners, the clients, and everything.
Exactly. It started off really with trying to get clients on board, because if they're sensitive, the chances are they might object to an application. So inviting them over to your home and then providing a format that the client's neighbours can fully understand, then we know that we can understand them as well. And if they are concerned about the design, how can we address that before submitting the application? Not leaving it to chance, because if they do not understand the drawings, the chances are they might be slightly reserved about the application, potentially objecting rather than supporting the application.
And are there any moves amongst planning authorities or the government to make this part of the planning process?
I don't think so, no. I think we've been using it for a long time, and there's a lot of talk about it, and it's only the last sort of 6 to 12 months I've noticed a slight change in the industry where people are starting to use virtual reality. It's a bit of an unknown at the moment. There is an investment to get to that point with the software and the hardware, as well as the training. However, when you get there, it pays for itself tenfold.
And finally, we've talked about how these kind of visualizations make it easier for non-architects to understand what's going on, but presumably it makes it easier for you as well. Does it change the way you design? Does it change your understanding of the project you're working on?
It does, yes. For us, obviously, when you're working with designs, you get used to things and you have confidence in your own skills to be able to put a proposal forward. But it is then that collaboration with your clients and being able to stand them in the home and make those key decisions, walking around, and it's showing them everything and being completely transparent about what they're saying yes to. So if they have any concerns about a wall or a window, you can move it live. And recently Twinmotion has worked with the big companies such as Graphisoft and Archicad, where you have a plugin and it's a few clicks from changing a window or a color of a floor type, and then it's in virtual reality. So our concept stage has significantly reduced because our clients now understand everything.
And I imagine the clients quite like having that movie to show people when they come around. They'll give them a tour of the real building and then probably share the movie on their iPad or whatever with their friends and relatives. And
they're the people that know our clients better than we do. So they can then contribute, say, what about this? What about that? They refine the process. The whole decision-making process is a lot easier with the use of virtual reality.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And finally, Sandra and Luke, if you could share your presentation, please.
Sure.
Yep. Okay. Okay, hopefully you can all see that.
Yep.
Great.
Okay, so yeah, we've got a design research studio called You+Pea. We kind of broadly work at the intersection between architecture and video games. So that encompasses, I guess, the technology, the culture of games, and I think some of these things that have already kind of come up before, which is about you know, how games and other software can be used to increase kind of access for people to the built environment industries.
Yeah, so we also run a master studio at the Bartlett School of Architecture called Video Game Urbanism, where all of our students make video games to better understand the kind of the complexities of contemporary cities, especially in relation to the many different computational systems that govern them today. So we really see games as a tool for engagement, for connecting people, thinking about how they could become collaborative design environments. And we also look at the kind of the history and morphology of cities, challenging contemporary notions of what a city could be, and exploring various regulations and zonings, ecological living within games as well as them being instructional tools. We look at things like procedural generation and how we can produce kind of complex projects that work between urbanism and video games, and really critiquing and proposing new futures for cities as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think to touch on some of the points that were raised before, it's also storytelling is so important to this type of work. So the combination of games as a really kind of potent software for combining real-time simulation, real-time visualization and interactivity, but also the fact that the culture and history of games comes from storytelling. And so we find that these are an absolutely perfect medium to kind of speculate on the present and the future of urban space in complex ways. And again, we kind of ask our students to then kind of unpack the games that they've made and to really kind of delve deeply into the relationship between the visualization and the kind of systemic analysis of cities that they produce in their work.
Yeah, we're currently also working on a book which is examining the worlds of a number of commercial video games through the eyes of an architect. So using methods of spatial analysis, mapping and data mining techniques to kind of reveal the logics behind their urbanism.
Yeah, I think for us, again, this is really important because there's a lot to learn for architecture from the games industry, and part of that is also this idea of spatial storytelling, which obviously has a very, very long history in architecture as well. But in relation to these new technologies, there's ways in which these worlds are kind of constructed and delivered, and how players are allowed to interact with them that I think are really subjects worth of inquiry for architects as well.
And so we'd like to speak about a project that we used Twinmotion on recently. And this is called Everyone is Architecture. It's inspired by Hans Hallein declaration that everything is architecture. So looking at a real-time design environment as an extension of the architectural field. And here you can see the initial concept drawing for it.
Yeah, so our kind of concept was that this would be an augmented reality live site system where people would actually embody pieces of architecture. And again, what we can do then is we can leverage the power of the game engine to allow us to run like physics simulations. So people kind of collaborating in a virtual space in real time, you can actually calculate how those different building components would fit together and what relationship they start to generate. And I think what was really kind of powerful for us in being able to use Twinmotion is that, again, I think as has been spoken about before, this kind of relationship between the concept, the design process, visualizing and critiquing this kind of output, and then going back in and refining things is made incredibly fluid by using this type of software, because we can drop things right in, we can assign materials. There's a vast bank of materials, but it's also coming from our own background, we're able to build and extend the software by using our own materials and things like that. And it's a very kind of fluid way of testing things.
Yeah, I suppose as a game engine, we're able to place various logics and animations into it and get a sense of this really dynamic environment that we wanted to create. And we can obviously do this really quickly, as has been mentioned before, and then plug it into the more complex tool of Unreal to kind of develop it further. So we kind of really like the meta narrative of using this tool. So it's kind of using a game engine to conceptualize a project that would take place in a augmented reality game. And so for us, that's also the kind of unique power of this type of software too.
Yeah, and I think we feel like in the last 5 years, our teaching practice has kind of really connected into some of the conversations that are increasingly emerging about the ubiquity of game engines and I think the influence of game culture as well on many other fields. And we feel that it's something that's already starting, but has got much more growth to come as well. So thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you very, very much. And the work that you were showing there, unlike the previous presentations, did actually look like video games. And my first question is maybe a bit of a stupid one, but when you talk about video game urbanism, is that using video games to create real urbanism, or is it to create urbanism in video games, or both?
I think it's a bit of a back and forth. Most of our games take real sites and real kind of considerations. So for example, that we had some students a few years ago who looked at the planning regulations in the UK, and as you mentioned before, the way that planning information is kind of delivered to people and how people understand the decisions that are being made about sites around them. So they went out into Bloomsbury around the Bartlett and they kind of compiled all these various different planning applications, and they made a game that was essentially looking at what the kind of semantic gaps were in the traditional A4 notice put up on a lamppost, and how people could intuit what that actually meant in a kind of non-expert language.
I guess essentially creating a playable planning notice rather than one that just sinks to the ground on a lamppost.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say increasingly it's almost like games, we're seeing games as platforms for architecture rather than the game, being directly like going either way as a proposal.
I mean, this point about planning applications is a really good one. Presumably, you would argue that gaming techniques should be used in the planning process.
Yeah, I think it's something that, especially in like participatory design, the use of game systems more generally and game engines more kind of specifically, I think is something that people are becoming much more aware of, because there's a whole science behind getting people to engage with things and structures and making structured play that generates results. And I think that's really powerful, and there's a lot for architects to learn from game design and the game industry, not just in terms of the amazing tools, but in a visual sense, but also what those tools kind of create in terms of a structure for getting feedback in the design process.
Yeah, I think I've been to some pretty sad consultation events, and I think definitely these kinds of tools can help to engage people in a lot more dynamic and inclusive way as well.
Yeah, planning could actually be fun, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Which it isn't at the
Imagine
moment.
that.
Now, so the Bartlett is an architecture school, and you've already sort of suggested that the discipline, the work that your group is doing is sort of straddles real and virtual. But are you training people to be architects for the real world, or are you training people to be architects for gaming design? Or again, does it not really matter to go either way? Or is there a sort of blurring of the two?
I think part of it's to do with the the expanded field. I think, as Belinda said, that that there's a generation of practitioners and educators who've come out looking at these tools as something that can add to what architects deal with in their work. So I think what we're trying to do is to prepare designers who, maybe some of the roles that they're ready for are not yet generated. I think they are in some really big practices, because there's already teams of people that are using game engine software, in architectural practice. But I think is preparing students for a future where the design of kind of platforms and new tools for engagement and new tools for creating design is going to be part of architectural practice in the future. So I think, for us, it's quite exciting for our students to come out perhaps inventing new fields within the discipline as well.
Yeah, and also I guess proposing that a lot of architecture might remain virtual, we might build less, and we might speculate more. So to kind of get people to understand how it might be different to design for a virtual environment versus a physical one.
Great. Well, let's open it up to all of the panelists now. A similar question, really. I'd like to ask you all, to what extent is gaming design influencing real architecture, and to what extent are the kind of disciplines of real architecture and gaming environments sort of merging and becoming the same thing? Belinda, what's your thoughts on that?
So I think we can learn and borrow, benefit a lot from gaming environments, in the sense that, with game engines, you create games. And games are nothing else but virtual constructs of reality. They're simulating reality for you. And in architecture, currently what's happening is you first build and then you test. You first build and then you learn from your from your design experience and your construction experience, and then you do it better and smarter the next time. But with games, if you create a game environment for your building, you have a test bed at hand. You have the simulated reality at hand, in which you can put your idea in, you can put your building design in, you can test your idea before an architect's imagination can be put into brick and mortar. And that helps in a lot of ways. It helps to mitigate problems and issues, and you can test your ideas and get data. That data you can then weave back into your next iteration. And just games and game environments help you to build better, smarter buildings. I think that's the essence of it.
And Murray, in Sandra and Luke's presentation, the buildings that they were showing were clearly they wouldn't stand up. They literally wouldn't stand up in the real world. And you mentioned that Squire and Partners is a traditional architect, but do you think that when you've got a generation of children growing up inhabiting for hours every day kind of impossible worlds, will that start to influence the look and feel of real architecture? Would Squire and Partners start coming up with designs that were sort of borrowed ideas from Fortnite or from other virtual games, do you think?
Well, I would love to say yes, but I think there is a world out there of constraints that, in the imagination that's in of a video game. That's why video games are so wonderful, is that those dull constraints are not there, and I don't know that without seeming dull, I don't know whether the world is going to change and that all of those dull constraints are suddenly going to disappear because we have the ability to express our ideas through software which is more advanced than it was previously. So I'm going to say no, actually. I don't think that the gaming software will change the world.
Well, let me put the question in a slightly different way then. Maybe, let's say in 20 or 30 years' time, when people who've grown up playing fantasy, inhabiting fantasy environments through games, are then running the planning department and are then coming to you to commission buildings, do you think that they will block out all of those kind of fantastical experiences they had online and ask for a sort of a white box? Or do you think they might start becoming more acceptable to have more fantasy inspired.
You know,
projects?
if one looks, you know, sort of globally, where perhaps, you know, I was, you know, my previous statement is sort of, you know, I'm so London centric that the perhaps constraints will always be there, but globally, yeah, perhaps there will be areas in the world that could be more fantastical and more imaginative and less constrained by the past, and more forward looking and be influenced exactly by the culture of the video game. So yeah.
And do you have any thoughts on the planning process that we were talking about before? Would this be something that would help the planning process?
I do think that is a really interesting aspect of what we've been debating, because of course, you know, we are forever you know, in my world, trying to convince planners that the height of the building is appropriate, for example. And one's experience as you move through a city is a kinetic one, and trying to sell your idea through a series of still images is always quite strange. And I do believe that if we can engage with people to explain our ideas through this kind of software, one hopes that could it could give everyone more confidence about proposals, which might be otherwise more difficult to accept in a 2D, you know, still image.
Great. And Adam, the previous question to you as well, do you think that eventually the fact that large numbers of people are spending a lot of time in gaming environments playing games, will that start to impact their expectations of the real world through architecture and other built forms?
I think I'm similar to Murray in terms of whatever you pitch, it's to other decision makers. So whilst I'm quite happy to look into being creative with the design, it's how far it will go before our clients pull the plug and say, we can't get it through. But that shouldn't necessarily limit their enjoyment of their scheme, because planners don't really have a view inside their home, and it's a way you want to live. And I think something that Sandra said earlier is building less. I think that's really exciting, because you can pitch a different way of living, and being able to live in a virtual reality environment as part of your design process, you can make those key decisions. That might still, like you mentioned, a white box on the outside, but you can live a different life within that white box.
So you have a sort of a double game going on, like it sort of looks all
Possibly
traditional and doesn't scare the neighbors on the outside, and then total freak show on the inside. And which actually your point leads on to the next question I wanted to ask people. There's a lot of talk about the emergence of a metaverse, which is a kind of parallel universe where we spend some of our time, and that metaverse could be like completely different from the real world, or it could be a sort of twin, like a digital twin of the real world. What's your thought about how that will happen, how people will be able to simultaneously inhabit the real world with all the conventions and the kind of maybe more conservative constraints, and the virtual world where they can really let their hair down?
I think it will be down to an individual and how they accept. And I think that's within our industry, is accepting the technology. And once you accept it, you can benefit from it. Our journey started, and one guy said, it's great to put a VR headset on because I can sit in my living room and watch a bigger TV. And it just seemed a weird concept that you're putting something over your face to watch a cinema screen. But that's available. And there's, within gaming technology, there's no real limit in what can be created. So if you want to build a world, because that's what gives you a bit of calm at the end of the day, you can still go to work and do a 9 to 5, or as we're used to our spare bedrooms at the moment, do a hard day's work, but then immerse yourself in something so you can be a better you. And that's so individual. And I think that's really important, that this gaming technology doesn't limit that.
And same question to you, Sandra and Luke. I mean, what are your thoughts on this idea of the emergence of the metaverse and the talk about digital twins, where a building or even a whole town has a parallel existence in the virtual space?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting emerging conversation around a term that's actually like 30 years old. And obviously Epic is one of the companies, I think, that's been kind of at the forefront of that discussion. I mean, I think for us, it's like, yeah, you can see with some of the metaverse-like things that are already out there, that there is this kind of interesting tension that you're talking about between like replicating property systems that might already exist, as in you buy a plot of land, you can put your building on it, and that plot of land is, you know, protected as a kind of cryptocurrency or non-fungible token. And so in a sense, there's some kind of interesting questions about how the development of a metaverse is also going to require the development of obviously new computational infrastructure, but new like social infrastructure as well. And I think that there's something about the intensity of game worlds, which is kind of interesting because of the nature of Twinmotion as an architectural visualization software is highly realistic, and it kind of is replicating the real world, whereas a lot of the work that we do has got this kind of game-like intensity that, you know, you wouldn't necessarily imagine that all parts of the metaverse would be turned up to the same kind of volume. But I certainly think that in also knowing the kind of advances like the Unreal Engine 5 is kind of bringing as well, that the metaverse could end up becoming, yes, as you say, very much like a digital twin, both visually and in terms of replicating systems. But I think that's also gives it a lot of potential for this kind of interchange between a building in reality and a building in the metaverse. The metaverse building might be, you know, working out how best its system should be run and then regulating the building in reality. So this kind of live testing and prototyping could happen in a much more deep fashion as well.
Yeah, it's interesting to start to imagine, which is what some of our students are working on at the moment actually, which urban or architectural typologies will be affected by the metaverse and which parts of the city perhaps might not. So what we'll be choosing to log on for, and what might we be content with in reality.
And same question to you, Belinda. How do you see the emergence of this sort of parallel digital world? How will Twinmotion facilitate that, and what's on the horizon in terms of people dipping in and out between the real world and the virtual world?
Good question. So in terms of all things metaverse, first of all, I think it's not going to be built by one person, one company, one entity. It has to be built by everybody, by everyone. So the process of getting there is going to be a very participative one. It's not, you know, right now we're shifting from being a passive consumer to an active contributor, because the technology needed to create the metaverse, real-time tech and all those complex technology tools, are becoming more accessible due to its simplification. And if we can create new jobs like You+Pea and create new roles and new demands and new fields and summon a new era of designers, then getting to the metaverse will be, you know, an expedited process. We will get there no matter what and when, but now this is more about, you know, as Murray said, the adoption is still somewhat slow, and we need to drive awareness, and we need to spread the message a little bit more. We need to amplify that message that we're, you know, ushering into a new era. We just hit the first milestone. The next milestone will be spreading real time across the world, making it more accessible, hence getting to the metaverse faster and more collaboratively. And yeah, I think that we will see a better connection between the physical world and the digital metaverse world, in which we have a clone of each and every structure and system and infrastructure and building in the physical and in the metaverse. And I mean, actually the metaverse, we are already in it. We're already doing it. We are already somewhat little metaversers, you know, versing around that world, because we have an avatar, we have a digital me, you have a digital you. And we're already trying to refine that digital you and represent that. And you will see this more, you know, you will see that become stronger with every other aspect in life, not just the human, not just architecture or design or buildings. You will see this around all sorts of services. Maybe we will do politics in the metaverse, and we will have a thriving economy there. So it's an exciting thing to observe and to be part of.
Wow, politics in the metaverse. I mean, it couldn't be any worse than politics in the real world. Right. Get it? We do have some questions from the audience, but they're all very technical in nature. So I think it's probably better if we send them to you later. I think people are interested in entering the competition. I've got some quite specific questions, but so instead I'm going to ask you all one very simple question. If you enter Dezeen and Epic Games Redesign the World competition, what thing would you put in your vision for planet Earth? I'll start with you, Belinda, because you're on screen at the moment. Like one thing. I mean, maybe pianos everywhere or something. What would to make the world a better place? What could we do?
Make the world a better place. Oh my gosh! So
I'm really putting you on the spot here because you're going to be judging
Right.
other people's ideas, and I've asked you to come up with one of your own.
I would just say I want to see a better connection between the human being and its habitat, the building per se, a smarter connection. It's the building becoming humanized, and yeah, that's what I want to see. I want to see that there's a stronger marriage and relationship between the end user and the architecture.
Great, good one. Murray, same question to you.
Goodness, I don't know. Maybe sustainability is such a kind of hot topic. Maybe there is flexibility in the structures that we build in the virtual world that can change over time and still adapt, and that might influence us in the real world.
Good, Adam.
It's the layout, how the layout works and how it engages with its surroundings. And if that has a cliff top or a footpath or anything like that you can just stand and soak in a view, that's what I would probably want to see.
Cool. And Sandra and Luke, it would be good if you could encourage all your students to enter the competition, but what would you put in your ideal version of planet Earth?
I think it'd be really interesting for this purpose to really question the role of nature through, this simulated world, because obviously it's all going to be artificial. So to really, try to define the role of ecology and nature within the game environment is something that's always really fascinating to us.
Yeah, a way of understanding the impact of the decisions that we make as human beings every day through an environment that can communicate that to us in real time, I think would be really fascinating.
Brilliant. Well, you all have a few more weeks left to enter the competition and refine your ideas. So everyone who's watching this, dezeen.com/redesign the world. And we're looking forward to seeing everyone's entries. And thanks very much to our panel for a fascinating discussion. Belinda, Murray, Adam, Sandra, and Luke. And of course, huge thanks to Epic Games for supporting this whole project. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Belinda, you're going to play the piano first, right?
Well,
the outro.
I was thinking maybe Dezeen should launch a dedicated live session and it's called Dezeen in concert with me.
You, really?
Yeah.
Does that mean you're not going to play?
Because I need to prepare. I need to wear my piano dress and I need to warm up, and then I'll just play for you.
You know what? That sounds like something worth waiting for. We'll definitely find an opportunity to do that.
Awesome.
Brilliant. Thanks.